We're called into community today with words from the Dhammapada, which is part of the Pali Canon, hundreds, thousands of years old. But still they call to us, saying, let us live joyfully. Let us form a community of love in a world full of hatred. Let us live without any kind of hatred. Let us live joyfully. Let us form a community of spiritual health in a world full of illness. Let us live without any kind of spiritual disease. Let us live joyfully. Let us form a community of peace in a world full of rivalry. Let us live without any kind of rivalry. Let us live joyfully. Let us form a community which possesses nothing. Let us live on spiritual bliss, radiating spiritual light. And now a Unitarian Universalist congregation has been formed here in the virtual space. Unitarian Universalists have the symbol of a flaming chalice. And so now I invite you to safely light a fire at home, heeding the words that I will say. Somewhere in a kitchen drawer or out in the garage or left inside a pocket of that jacket you don't wear, you have a way to kindle fire, to light a flame of faith in virtual space from right there in your home, which now itself becomes a chalice and you, the light within it. There now, chalices are lit. And Red River Unitarian Universalists always, when they gather as a congregation, say this affirmation, which I invite everyone to say at home as they will see the words on their screen. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. So let's begin our morning program with this opening thought from F. Scott Fitzgerald. It's a funny thing coming home. Nothing changes. Everything looks the same, feels the same, even smells the same. You realize what has changed is you. The first reading I want to share with you today is something that was new to me. It's an 8th century poem by a Chinese artist and poet named Wang Wei. And it was astonishing to me to come across something so tender and beautiful about such a rocky and strange place. Here is the poem. The limpid river past its bushes, running slowly, slowly as my chariot, becomes a fellow voyager returning home with the evening birds. A ruined city overtops an old ferry. Autumn sunset floods the peaks. Far away, beside Mount Song, I shall close my door and be at peace. One use of time in a morning program for spiritual seekers and believers alike is to spend time in meditation. And so those of us who put together the programs, the visiting preachers and the worship leaders, the lay leaders, search the world for inspirational words and thoughts. We've already gone down back through time to the Pali Canon of India. Now I found something also reminiscent of the thoughts of home that we're thinking of. This is from Malling Abbey in Denmark. I invite you to listen to this, and then we can get you the text of it and the references so that you can have it again. But here now, these thoughts for meditation as we go through this program and try to determine what kind of a place we like to be in. Make me a still place of light, a still place of love, of you, your light radiating, your love vibrating, your touch and your healing, far flung and near, to the myriads caught in darkness, in sickness, in lostness, in fear. Make a heart center here. Light of the world. And now I begin the discourse with a second reading from our familiar Judeo-Christian tradition, but it's a different gospel than some have heard. It's the Gospel of Thomas. This was a fifth gospel in a famous, not a famous book, but a book written by scholars newly translating the Gospels. And I think you will find some of it familiar, but I hope it's a different twist on what you've heard before. Here's the Gospel of Thomas, verses 86, 97, and 113. Jesus said, Foxes have their dens and birds have their nests, but human beings have no place to lay down and rest. Jesus said, "The Father's imperial rule is like a woman who was carrying a jar full of meal. When she was walking along a distant road, the handle of the jar broke and the meal spilled behind her along the road. She didn't know it. She hadn't noticed a problem. When she reached her house, she put the jar down and discovered that it was empty. His disciples said to him, 'When will the Father's imperial rule come?' 'It will not come by watching for it. It will not be said, look here or look there. Rather, the Father's imperial rule is spread out upon the earth, and people don't see it.'" Here ends the reading. Now begins the discourse. Imagine, what if you could hear colors? What if you could smell a sound? What if a piece of music could make you see visions? Well, if all of that were true, you would then have either a miracle or synesthesia, which is a neurological, I guess, condition where you have irregular crossed responses to sensory input. In other words, somebody with synesthesia would hear colors or smell sounds. You could have two of your senses crossed or several or rarely all of them. So now imagine, what if it was World War II and you had synesthesia and you got recruited to be a spy for the Allies to take down the Nazis with your special powers? Well, well, that was actually the premise of a television show that my beloved spouse and I were watching last year. It was a pretty good show. It was called X-Force. These were Canadian spies, so they were very nice. And one of them, named Alfred, was the one with synesthesia. It was very exciting. At some point, he was impersonating a Nazi officer in occupied Paris. And uh, the plot line went like this. He had been compromised, and his colleagues, also underground in occupied Paris, knew this, and they knew that he was about to be taken out of the headquarters where he was infiltrated and shot. But nobody knew this, and they needed to find a way to tell him this without alerting the Nazis. Well, Alfred, with synesthesia, had at one point told his colleague that for him, the chord E flat major was blue. And not only that, it was home for him. So quick thinking colleagues in the X-Force, they figured out what to do. And when Alfred was being walked out in disguise still of Nazi headquarters, they had an accordion player, of all things, standing by the door, loudly playing the chord E flat major. And Alfred knew just what to do. He rendezvoused for home wearing a blue suit. Well, I tell you all this to make the point that our senses, even if we're not synesthetes, our senses are very powerful. You can hear one piece of music and have it send you right home. The color of the music sent him home. And even without those special attributes, that we know how powerful our senses are. They drive our emotions. They attach us to places in ways that we can't even logically explain. These days, we've been in our homes and they've seemed like places we're just getting to know all over again. I know that myself, I've learned more about the way my home feels to me than I ever could imagine. Our homes are safe havens to me. It's a universal longing built into the human soul. And for many of us, the soundtrack is E flat major. But why talk about that now? You're wondering, what is she on about? Well, there's so much going on in the world. Well, I have reasons. Because we all have been at home a lot with the pandemic, and we are still at home. And for the duration, we're going to be at home. And point two, we are entering a season that in any other time would have even richer sensory associations. The shortened days are upon us, and soon it will mean home for the holidays. And the assault of pumpkin spice is coming already, followed soon by cinnamon and pine and peppermint and holly, right? The feel of the sweaters that we're getting out, the sound of the carols. Don't get me started. And really, not only are the senses of home just overwhelming and about to get more so, the sense of our home is on our minds right now. It's threatened, really, I think, on a subterranean level we haven't really unpacked. We're struggling these days on a lot of levels, and all of you know this. There's discourse, there's talk, there's issues, but our sense of safety here in our homes, I think, is threatened, and maybe we don't understand it yet. I think we're afraid. Because if we had any illusions about America as a glorious mansion, big enough for all, well, they're slipping away. The truth is that the fear of being invaded in our homes has really been an irrational fear for a long, long time. You're far more likely to be hurt on the highway or struck by lightning than you are to be invaded in your home. But now I don't think we feel as safe in our homes anymore. It's as if we've been living in these lovely houses for all this time, and suddenly we're realizing there's some pretty awful places in the basement where it's been horrible for some, and we don't know if we can bear it. And we need to figure out what color our home really is. Is it blue like it was for Alfred, the man with synesthesia, or do we see our home as red like they do over there? Are we really right now yearning for a clean and healthy purple home in E flat major like we once thought we had? So those are the things I wanted to talk with you about in advance of a very fraught season that is upon us now. So here we are in our homes, all of us. This is my home. I've made it as tidy as I can to show you. In the first world here, many of us have enjoyed being home in the pandemic, and we've said that and then immediately felt guilty because some people maybe didn't have as nice a home. Now that we don't get out so much, well, let's talk about what have you done in the great staycation. I don't mind if you put comments in if you're watching this premiere. I don't consider it you talking in church. I consider it you breathing in church. So feel free, talk about it. Sometimes some of us have been embarrassed to realize, that, yeah, we're here and we kind of like it. We're introverts. We didn't really enjoy going out that much. I've been working on my house. I've been working on my landscape. Some of us realize we've been binge watching a lot of two-dimensional entertainment. And then we have to go out and buy weighted blankets because we're starved for sensory input. By the way, pro tip, those old cotton and wool blankets that you didn't want anymore, they're weighted. Trust me, try those. You'll see what I'm talking about. Look, I can't prove it, but I believe the human animal that we are needs authentic sensory input, more of that, not less. Our senses are skewed, not crossed like synesthesia, but skewed. We're dulled by overstimulation, false stimulation. We're confused by over marketing. Everything's aromatherapy. Nothing smells like it's supposed to. They make poisonous detergent pods smell like delicious treats. And then they have to tell everybody what to do, what number to call when somebody eats the pods and gets sick. Food doesn't taste like it's supposed to anymore. I'm sorry. I know it sounds like a fogey saying that, but it doesn't. And I don't even know how it's supposed to taste anymore. It's driven me to learn how to bake. In the staycation, in the pandemic, I started looking at the things around me and picking them up and feeling them, questioning what it was, what they were, what was their intent. I discovered I had too many meaningless objects around me instead of objects of meaning. So my reaction has been over the months of this time has been to sort of unpack and scrutinize. And I've replaced a lot of manufactured items with items that I've rescued really from secondhand stores. My home is slowly becoming an exhibit in the Museum of Natural History in a good way. I shop a lot at secondhand stores and thrift stores. My sister, my late sister, and I used to do that a lot. She had an interesting little cognitive glitch of hers. She really believed in buying American. She was very staunch that way. She really didn't want to buy Chinese or product made overseas if she could help it. But if she was in a thrift store, if she found something in a thrift store and bought it there, she told me with a straight face, it was no longer made in China. So that was her rationale. I buy things in thrift stores that had been made by someone and then given away. I turn them over, ceramics. You can see there that someone made and signed and then decided they didn't think was good enough and they gave them away. To me, they're good enough. Someone made them. They're organic. They feel different to me. And I've been opening up my boxes of things I packed away, memorabilia I packed away because one day I thought I might want to remember those things. I've decided, well, now is probably a good time. And I smell them and I touch them and I feel them. Smell is probably the oldest one of our working senses. It's one of the senses of touch. Helen Keller said, smell is a potent wizard that transports us across thousands of miles and all the years we have lived. I'm indulging my senses, not saving the good china for later. I'm using it. Silver, the silver plate that my mom gave me. I'm having innocent pleasures of touch and smell, and because I've decided to experience the nostalgia that it might bring. If it hurts me and I live through that, then I have power. Reduce, reuse, and recycle is more than a discipline. It's reconnecting with the reality that I'm living with. Because you know what? I don't want my home to just be an Amazon drop-off point. It's as simple as that. I want my home to be a place where I live amongst other living beings. And nature itself. I'm an indoorsy kind of gal. I admit it, always have been, always will be. You know, if you've heard me preach before, my beloved spouse and I do not like the climate here. It is too hot. But we've trained ourselves and we've tentatively gone outside and made our outdoor area a tiny mortgaged plot of land, a place where we can stand and take our shoes off and feel the dirt. 15,000, 17,000 years ago, not very long in geological time, people painted astonishing murals of animals on the walls of caves. Did it by the light of burning animal fat, probably. We don't know why. Did they do it to live there, to dance, to sing songs, to have secret meetings? I don't know. Today in my home, my walls are done in repose gray. And after 2 years here, we finally finished hanging the pictures for our family photo wall. And now, after 2 years, I finally feel that this might be my home. And we don't have a fireplace here because that's silly. This is Texas. But we light scented candles And I say a little prayer, and I am realizing how crucial it is to indulge these deeper loves and hates, these senses that tell me I'm home. And there's a reason for that, because if we ignore how deeply these senses root us to our home, we don't respect the power that they have over us, we'll make terrible mistakes. That's my first point. Now, my second point. Here come the holidays. What are we going to do for the closeness and the intimacy we always have wanted? I have only a few ideas. I'm going to have a Zoom Christmas party. I'm thinking I will send food gifts to people's homes, invite them to a party, and say, let's all open our food gifts and eat them together. Sensory gifts of fragrance and food, and nothing that they should accumulate and put on the shelf, unless it's maybe gifts from that I have picked up and enjoyed from my past, and from my past to my present, my future. Give them. See what I did there? I'm starting this whole season with Diwali, which is on November 14th. Not appropriating the holiday, I hope, but appreciating it, learning about this festival of lights and family and celebrating at home. So all of you, I just want, since we've lifted up, to remind you, do what you can to shore up your sensory health now that you're thinking of it. Because here's my third point. Lurking beneath all these hallmark moments is the fear of home invasion that I slightly mentioned and said maybe was irrational in the past. It's always been irrational up till now. But now it's not irrational, because our home, our sense of home, is being invaded. It's been invaded. What's invading our sense is the fear that everything we believed was true about our home, our country, our place in the world, that it was a fair and civilized society, has not been true for many people here. And it is about to get worse for all of us if we don't take the right action. So see, we thought our homeland was a place where everyone was welcome. And we said that. And there's a poem on the Statue of Liberty that says that. Emma Lazarus's poem, "Give me your tired, your poor," it says. And we all pointed to that and said, isn't that lovely? Well, now we're afraid that the only reason that we were asking for their tired and their poor was so that they could be exploited and chained and used up and robbed and then tossed aside. We thought our homeland was a peace-loving nation. And now we realize that year after year, at least since September of 2001, our homeland's war on a feeling, terror, has driven 37 million other people out of their homes. It takes me a minute just to do that sentence in my head. That on my behalf, supposedly, the powerful powers have bought and sold and profited by this machine that has driven 37 million people, mostly brown people in other parts of the world. 37 million people have been driven out of their homes because they say, we are afraid. I don't know why we don't fire every single elected representative who has let that happen. Because 18 years of this, having those wars, those engineered wars, and killing whatever enemies we can, and making those 37 million people homeless around the world hasn't made things better here, really, that I can see. And yet, the wheel is still spinning, isn't it? Actions are still there to be taken. And I say that the power to take those actions might just come from the deep and profound gratitude and strength that I could get from my home once I begin to properly and authentically appreciate it for what it is. And I need that because by 2050, another generation from now, there will be another 140 million climate refugees from Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Southeast Asia. So better set another place at the table, dear. We might have company. All I'm saying is, if we don't want that to happen, or if we want to be able to help mitigate that, we'd better learn some creative ways to calm this terror of ours and to maybe find the strength to go take some actions. So calm our terror with pumpkin spice and cotton blankets, if that's what it takes, and and maybe return to seeing our homes not as just, conduits for more and more goods, but places where we appreciate and settle upon and hold on to things that are already there, living things, objects that are real. So my home, I thought of it first as a sign of my privilege, and it is, but it also could be perhaps a nest for birds of the air, a hole for foxes, a place for the children of humankind to lay their heads. I don't know what this home's purpose will be. We we made it wanting it to be a place where people could come. I named it. It's called Little Forest because of the trees that are here. And I wanted it to be a place. We wanted it to be a place that was welcoming for others. I don't know how many others could fit in here. We'll find out. The morning program is going to close with a piece of music probably you've all heard and hopefully responded to the same way I have. It's Sibelius's tune, Finlandia. It's in E flat, and it's got the words that beg us to remember we are not the only ones who feel a sense of home in their land. It's the words, the original words, and oh, hear my song, oh God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine. There's another set of words that are equally wonderful, that call for unity, call for understanding. But the sound of the music itself makes synesthetes of us all because it goes directly into your soul. For me, it does make me see colors, not a blue home or a red home, but a purple home, a wash of the purple that is the holy, that goes deep, that makes me feel compassion for all of humanity. So I hope you will enjoy that and stay to hear it. And while you're listening to that, let's just remember that only 17,000 years ago, not very long in geological time, we were painting animals on the walls of caves for reasons none of us really know today, to make them beautiful, perhaps, or to claim them as ours, to work magic. For all we know, standing there in a cave, coughing from the smoke and the flickering light, those animals moved. Today, I want you to realize that if we can't be better, it's entirely possible we're going to end up in caves again. So, in this season that is so fraught with so many feelings and senses, please try to remember at the end of the day, we are all just walking each other home. And so it is. Amen.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and nigh. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and vine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine. May truth and freedom come to every nation. May peace abound where strife has raged so long, that each may seek to love and live together. A world united, righting every wrong. A world united in its love for freedom, proclaiming peace together in one song.
I leave you with a parting thought from Maya Angelou. She said this: Thomas Wolfe warned in the title of America's great novel that you can't go home again. I enjoyed the book, but I never agreed with the title. I believe that one can never leave home. I believe that one carries the shadows, the dreams, the fears, and dragons of home under one's skin, at the extreme corner of one's eyes, and possibly in the gristle of the earlobe. We may act sophisticated and worldly But I believe we feel safest when we go inside ourselves and find home, a place where we belong, and maybe the only place we really do. And now, if you're watching the premiere of this program, you're invited to fellowship time in a Zoom room after this. And Red River Unitarian Universalists are reminded of the congregational meeting at 1 o'clock. And I wish to personally remind you that there does have meaning in the term church home. So if you want to make any sense of it being a church home, you'll go to that congregational meeting, bring snacks, and be sure to bring enough for everyone. Wait, what did she just say? This is virtual church. There's always enough for everyone. Bye now. And now we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Hello, my name is Bruce Knotts, and I am the director of the Unitarian Universalist Association office at the United Nations. And I am really looking forward to speaking to you, the UU congregation at Red River, on October 25th, and that's a Sunday. Charles Dickens wrote, "It's the best of times, it's the worst of times." And in many cases, I would say that we feel like we're in the worst of times now, and we have serious problems, which I will discuss. We have climate change, pandemic, the rise of authoritarianism, global migration, a rise in racism, so many problems. Most of them, actually all of them, are global problems, and they need to be handled globally. So we're going to look at those problems, but when we have a catastrophe, like World War II, for example, it gives us an opportunity for a reboot. It gives us an opportunity to change things in dramatic ways, hopefully for the better. And I want to talk about those things too. So we will talk about how we are all in this together. That's the title of my sermon. We'll talk about the best and the worst that we're facing ahead. And I look forward to seeing you on October 25th. It's a Sunday. See you then. Bye.